When you're, to the point where you're trying to grab a breath and your throat is so swollen that you cannot breathe at all, it's pretty frightening. It is very frightening.
Most severe, I don't know if you've ever seen The Goonies before. It's a really old movie, but that's what my face will look like when it's swollen, is I'll look like the big monster from The Goonies.
When I got to the hospital, they actually had to do the electrical shocking to bring me back and intubate me at 23.
Whenever I start puking, it doesn't stop, and I get dehydrated, and I always have to go to the hospital.
By the time we got there, it was too late. My throat had swollen shut. My lungs collapsed. My heart stopped twice. And I ended up with a trach. And I mean, it can be devastating.
One time whenever I was 9, my foot was swollen, and I took my father's X-Acto knife and I cut my foot because I wanted it to go away because I had a soccer game the next morning. But it didn't go away.
I had gone to bed with my cousins, stayed up late, whatever, and I woke up at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't me. It was, I don't even know how to explain what I felt when I looked in the mirror, because my cheeks were out to here, my lips were splitting down the middle, they were so swollen. My eyes were like little teeny tiny slits, I couldn't barely even see to them, and I ran into my mom's room and I was like, Mom, Mom, and her face was just horror, like what happened to my daughter overnight?
When I was 2 and 3 years old, I used to swell up and couldn't figure out why I was swollen up. I'd wake up in the morning, my face would be, eyes would be shut, nose would be about this big, my whole face would be, lips would be stuck out, And I look in the mirror and, for a 2, 3, 4-year-old child, you don't have a clue about what's going on.
I was probably 7, and I remember waking up and my hand being like Popeye's, like just huge. And I didn't know what was going on. And I asked my mom and my dad, is this normal? And they explained that this is something that I'd have to deal with for the rest of my life.
Hereditary angioedema, or HAE, is a swelling disorder that affects approximately 1 in 50,000 individuals in the United States. Swelling can occur anywhere in the body. Most cases involve inflammation of the gastrointestinal lining and/or the extremities. Some attacks affect the face, trunk, or genitals, and others impact laryngeal tissues. Patients with hereditary angioedema, or HAE, have a mutation in the gene for the normal blood protein C1 esterase inhibitor. HAE is an autosomal dominant disease, and as such can be passed from parent to child or can develop from a spontaneous genetic mutation.
C1 inhibitor is involved in regulating some of the inflammatory pathways. So basically the patients are lacking this regulatory factor, so they can get uncontrolled episodes of swelling.
This kind of swelling is caused by leaking of blood vessels, and the fluid from the blood leaks out into the tissues, and depending on where it occurs, that's where the swelling is. So it could be 3 fingers in the right hand and the groin and the left foot, and the eyelid may be the eye may swell shut, tongue may be huge. And it would be different every time.
I had an attack every month I remember from 3rd grade on.
I woke up this morning, my hand was swelled, so I was going to take a picture of it. That's my left hand swollen and my right finger starting to swell. My stomach's feeling a little bad, so.
This is where I was raised. We got a little pond down there at the bottom. It's real nice out here in the country. Come on, get out of here. Come on. Woo. Get on, let's go. Come on, get on out.
Every time he would play football, we'd end up in the emergency room with him vomiting and the abdominal pains. So They didn't know what it was, so my husband actually told them to check him for the angio because it run in the family.
I mean, my brothers and sisters used to call me a monster, you know. They used to run from me, and, you know, when I would swell up, you know, they'd all, here comes Kenny, you know, and they'd run, and we rolled and fought and did everything, you know, normal children do. And, but then I'd get home, and the next morning I'd wake up, and my hand would be swollen, or my arm would be swollen, or my feet would be swollen. In my face, I don't think I could count it. I don't think I'm 62 now, but I couldn't count how many times I've had it in my face.
My son is pure boy, 100%, rough as a board, plays raw, plays hard, always scratches, cuts. Haven't seen any signs of him yet. I didn't see any signs of myself at that age.
As you can see, my lips are swollen up on the upper left side there. I don't think I really have to point that out, it's kind of obvious.
Different things can provoke it. A weather change, physical stress, emotional stress, trauma, meaning you're bumped in the elbow while you're playing basketball, or you're tackled, or you fall while you're jogging, or the pressure from bike riding on the foot, or a surgical procedure, or an infection. And sometimes it just occurs.
Patients may have mild attacks for several times and then all of a sudden have a very severe attack, or the attack could occur only in the stomach or abdomen area, and then patients are still at risk for having an attack in the airway. So it's very variable in that sense.
It'll get hot, almost like you're getting hives, and it'll get itchy, and it'll be like a burning kind of sensation, and you can feel like the skin just stretching, and that's really what hurts the most, is feeling it start to swell. And it's not just you look down and it's swollen, it just over hours and hours, but it just won't stop.
It's a dreaded feeling. And I think most people who have hereditary angioedema know, like, you get this horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach when you know you're about to get an attack. And it can start in different ways. Like for my face, frequently I'll end up with like what we call egg on the head. I'll get a bump on my head, or like a bump on my lip or something. And I think, oh no, it's not happening, please no. And I notice, I watch it, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. My face will become so severe that you can't see my face. My eyes are completely swollen. You can't even see my eyelashes. They're swollen over. All you can see is the tip of my nose. And my lips split and bleed. Like the whole inside of my mouth will slough off. The skin comes out. It's disgusting, and it's really painful.
You just hear that all of the time, that everyone thought we were the weird family. We thought we were the freaks. We knew we weren't pretending this, and we weren't trying to get attention.
There are patients with HAE who have come into the emergency room, even telling the physicians in the emergency room, listen, this is an attack of HAE, I'm having swelling of my intestines, and they've been taken to the operating room only to find that their gallbladder is normal, the appendix is normal.
I mean, I've had multiple surgeries, exploratory surgeries, I've had a hysterectomy, I've had all kinds of issues.
I couldn't tell you how many emergency rooms I've gone through, and the doctors are just, what's wrong with him? You know, I mean, his face is swollen, I mean, his hands are swollen. I mean, you know, they leave you on the gurney for 2 hours trying to read up on what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on in the emergency room. I mean, to this day.
I don't know if you know what it means to be Munchausen mom or Munchausen by proxy, where you're making this up, there's nothing wrong with your child. What did you do to her while I was out of the room? You know, why is she vomiting now or in pain now and she was fine 5 minutes ago? But when we would walk her into the hospital with her entire head and face distorted and her scalp swollen down over her eyes, they couldn't say we had done anything to cause this. And now they had to actually figure out, why do I have a 7-year-old whose face is so distorted we can't even see her eyes?
So you have good HAE days and you have bad HAE days. And today wasn't a great one. And I'm thankful for all I have, but can't help but think that sometimes it would be great just to be normal.
Every time you know you're getting sick is sort of the same, and it always goes from, I know I'm getting sick, maybe I won't get sick this time, I'm getting sick, I have to stop everything and change all the plans and make all the calls and, you know, get ready, I'm about to be in pain, there's this, you know, the cycle is always the same, and it's so frustrating. And then when you're done, you think, you start to fool yourself again. Maybe it won't happen again. Maybe it'll be a really long stretch before I get sick again.
The frustrating part is that I gotta leave work. And I don't have my car. I had to leave the work vehicle. So I'm driving my guy Henry's car. And then him and I are gonna have to meet up later and make the swap. So it's a nuisance.
Alright, so I'm at work right now and I'm kind of nervous because my stomach isn't feeling quite right, and that always freaks me out a bit. Makes me worried that I might have an attack, and that's kind of a frequent thing to happen at work. Not necessarily something you want all your coworkers to know about, but it's in the back of your mind. Andrew, you remember the Christmas where I spent the whole Christmas puking, right? Oh yeah. Because I just couldn't, you can't control an attack. If it wants to happen, it just happens. I had a date with a boyfriend, and I was really looking forward to it. And I got sick. I got so sick. And when after I got out of the hospital and I came back, I scared away the boyfriend and he dumped me.
Yeah,
that was so sad.
You would swell, and the teachers at school could not understand, why is this child not in school? And then you'd come back to school and they'd say, she looks perfectly healthy. Well, you weren't with her for 10 days when her face was so swollen you could not see her eyes. Her eyes were swollen shut. I mean, and she was, you know, it was just awful and in such pain.
She's kind of swollen. Shoot.
One time I get frustrated, and in one of your worst episodes, I took pictures. I thought, I'm going to go to the school and I'm going to show them why she cannot do the homework when she's home. So I slapped all the pictures on the table with the teachers, and I said, you've got to understand that when she's home, she is in trouble. And here's what she looks like, in trouble. You know, you think it's your cross to bear. I don't know what you think as a mother. What are you supposed to do?
You know, a lip could swell, eyes could swell. Someone looks like they're in a fight. Their feet could look so swollen they can't put socks or shoes on, let alone participate in any decent group activity. So many teenagers hide their disease by, you know, pulling away from. You know, if you have asthma, you may be short of breath, but you don't look funny. You don't look different.
I started running track because it was kind of like a last resort sport, because I couldn't do volleyball anymore, I couldn't do basketball, I couldn't do softball, and that was what I did before. It was my first 4x4, and I got myself so nervous. I'm generally like the kind of person whose mind over matter, you know, if I can tell myself it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. But I'd never run this before, so it was like fear of the unknown. And I could just feel my stomach getting bigger and bigger and bigger and tightening because of the emotional stress that I was putting on myself. There is a certain amount of pressure at school to look pretty and comparing yourself to all the other people, and walking down the hallways and people look at you and you wonder what they're thinking when they look at you. And if it's just you and a boy in the hall and he doesn't say something to you, it's like, oh my gosh, is it because of this? Is it because of that? And a lot of the stuff you just criticize yourself for.
In high school, I think I missed a whole year. Like, if you add up all the days I was out, it came to like a year. If I had like the littlest swelling, I wouldn't go because I'd be so embarrassed. I didn't want people to be like, what's wrong with your foot? If I couldn't wear like sneakers, so I just called out sick.
Everybody has their own thing that makes them unique and makes them special, and HAE is mine. And some days you can look at it as a blessing and some days you can look at it as a curse, But in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing you can do about it. And you can either sit and sulk or go on with your life and make the best of it.
I'm so excited for prom. I've been looking forward to prom since the first day of school because it's going to be really fun, and I really don't want to miss it. It's kind of what everybody's been talking about for a really long time. So you have simple jewelry, simple hair, simple makeup, big dress. So.
It was last year, and I was going on my first date with Joe, and my boyfriend, and I was really anxious. I was like, I hope I'm okay. Like, I hope everything goes good. You know, I don't have an attack. So we go to the movies, and we're holding hands, and we get out to the movies, and my hand is completely swollen because I was so worried about, like, having an attack that it, like, played into, like, having anxiety. And then, like, I guess holding hands, like, the way it was sitting on, like, the armrest. It was really embarrassing, but I just played it cool because I couldn't hide my hand for the rest of the night.
Good morning. It's like 8 o'clock on Sunday, the day after prom. I had a lot of fun. I'm just very tired. My feet were a little swollen last night, just a tiny bit from running so much and then dancing. But overall, it was fine.
An undiagnosed, untreated HAE sufferer has a 30% chance of dying if they experience a throat attack.
In addition to being an uncomfortable disease, in addition to being a disease where it is, you never know when it's coming along or what the severity of one individual swelling bout is going to be, it can also kill you.
When I was little, my mom was clinically dead, pronounced dead, I think twice. I was told I was in Virginia visiting my grandparents when it happened, so they told me that my mom died, but she was okay. So for a long time I didn't understand that because I think I was 6.
Yeah, my grandfather, he died from throat swelling at home. You know, he tried to, my dad would tell the story that he had tried to stick a spoon down in there to get himself to the hospital to open it up so he could breathe, but he didn't make it.
I was almost dead on the table, and that's only a year ago. I ended up on a ventilator for 6 days, and I was in intensive care for almost, I think, 2 weeks. It's a deadly disease.
Right now, at this time, I just have to say it's very, it's an emotional thing for me. I lost my son 1 year ago. I just feel that weekend that he just chose to ignore it, and I didn't realize it, and he went to sleep. And woke up about 5 in the morning with his throat closed and calling for help, but it was too late.
HAE is called hereditary because the genetic defect is passed along in families. A child has a 50% chance of getting HAE if one of his or her parents has HAE.
This is a chronic condition, meaning that once you have it, you have it. With hereditary angioedema, you're literally disabled. It's like a time bomb. You never know when it's going to happen.
And I got married right out of high school, right after I finished first year of college. And we had a little girl a year later, you know. But she never had any symptoms. And she was 8 years old before we decided to have another child, and we had a son. Got my baby boy helping me today. We'll kick his tail, he leaves that gate unlocked again. He goes back to school here in a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to work him much as I can in between now and then. He's having his hand swelling today.
He's never had it.
He's never had that before.
It's the truth, you know, I gave it to him, and when he's sick, sometimes parents have to imagine what their kids are going through. I honestly know, and I know how bad it hurts, and I know even emotionally to be able to play and run with your friends, and the next day he doesn't understand why he can't go out, why his stomach is that way, why he's throwing up. What happened to you in school? What was hurting?
Stomach.
And were you having trouble swallowing?
Yes.
Is it fun when you can't swallow and eat your favorite foods?
No. No, that's sad.
It's sad. Today, my mom is not HAE free, and both of her feet are swollen.
The left and right, you can't bend them. They won't arch. You just up and down. Very, very painful. Must repeat. Very painful. So you can't walk. You're stuck in the house. You can't go nowhere until they go down. Ouch.
I'll never forget it. It was awful knowing that now he was going to have it and that we didn't know how to treat it. And how badly did he have it? I didn't know. Was it going to affect him like it affected me? Was it going to affect him like it affected my mother, who has it just terribly? Or was it going to affect him like my younger sister, who, you know, totally different? And I thought my life has changed now forever knowing that.
We have an amazing array of speakers. We have world-class physicians that'll spend an hour and a half with you today.
When I watched my child suffering from this condition, far worse than I ever did, with relentless attacks that were totally debilitating, totally disabling, and lose her. That's how severe her HAE was, and it was time to do something about it.
And ladies and gentlemen, we all know it, I'm preaching to the choir, but this is the face of hereditary angioedema. Well, what's good about it? Nothing. However, we're working on it. We have the Hereditary Angioedema Association that's been built brick by brick over the last 10 years. And ladies and gentlemen, our organization is built on one premise and one premise only, and that is an absolute culture of caring.
I'm living, I'm breathing, walking, smiling. I mean, I have all my teeth so I can smile. I have 2 eyes I can see. My hands still work, my feet still work. I mean, I can laugh, I find things funny, I can be happy. I can do all these things. It's a choice of whether I want to or not. And there's no doubt that I had bad days where I just sat in my room and was like crying, like, why in the world? But then where is that gonna get you? I mean, it gets you nowhere. So you just gotta tough it up and go along. And I mean, if you're not gonna be happy with yourself, then no matter what anybody does around you, it's not even gonna help you. So if people tried so hard to make me feel better, and the only way I could accept it is to be happy.
This is an amazing time, actually, for people with this disease. I mean, I think the other message is we are in reoccurring historic moments with this disease. I think of all the people who lived without any knowledge or any contact of other people with the disease for years, and we have a totally different landscape now before us, and patients can reach each other, experiences can be shared.
In Tulsa, there's been a lot of rain lately, and that makes the fall colors even more brilliant. And I was just telling you just the other days, even though they're dying, they're so beautiful. And I love the red trees because they don't go quietly. They don't go quietly. And they seem to lose their leaves first, but they're the ones you notice. But they're the ones you notice. I think we'd be red trees. I hope so.
It's not rosy, and it's, you know, many of us would get rid of it if we could, and if there were a cure, sign me up. But I also have to say that looking back, I don't know that I would take it away from my life. I don't know that I would do that.